everybody, and welcome to Metaphysical Insights. I'm your host, William Becker, and I'm very pleased today to have my dear friend Pete Orbea on as my guest.
Hello, William.
Hi, it is so good to have you here. It's one way I get to talk to you. Pete's an incredibly busy man, especially this time of year. He is the director of the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, which will be a good part of the subject of what we're talking about. He also is the town manager for the town of Port Gamble. He's in a band. He's got a wonderful, beautiful wife and two wonderful girls. He's does walking ghost tours through town. He does um, more things than I can think of, and keep my sanity. So I don't know how he does it, but Pete,
I don't
welcome.
either. Thanks for having me on. I think
Oh
this
yeah,
is my third or fourth time, I think.
you've been a few times, but not
Yeah.
as often as I'd like. But um,
Well, it's just getting exhausted hearing you talk about what I do. Yes, I don't know how I do it.
and I paraphrased and summed it down. You know more of the details than I do. Um,
Sure.
yeah, we could go the whole show just giving out your credentials. Um, Pete, and then we've talked some of the beginnings about how you've seen ghosts, or your first trip was really that trip with your grandpa, if I remember right, your first ghost
Mm-hmm.
experience. But why don't we go ahead and mention that just a little bit, just to show some of your background in that you've been involved for years, and then
Sure.
maybe how you got into paranormal.
Well, I think I was unwittingly a part of the paranormal growing up.
Uh
Not
huh.
wittingly until I was older. But early on, well, I came from a sci-fi heavy household, so I feel like imagination was a good thing and being open-minded.
Hmm.
But the first experience I had that I can really remember in detail was about 7 years old, driving through northern Arizona with my grandparents. They lived in Sedona, and so they would come pick me up for the summer. Um, and we're driving along, and all of a sudden, two old Native American warriors appeared in the road in front of us. They were faced away from us and kind of turned in towards each other and looked back towards us. And my grandfather had hit the brakes by then,
Right.
slammed on the brakes. And as soon as we got to them, it was just they were gone. And in the mirror, looking in the mirrors as we were still sliding, yeah, there was nobody around. And then my grandpa said, and I always disclaim he's from a different generation, says, "Did you see them old Indians in the road?" And my stomach sank, I remember, thinking, okay, it wasn't just me that saw that, he saw it too. And then he says, "Well, don't tell your grandma, she'll freak out," because she was sleeping in the seat next to me.
Oh.
She was taking a nap when that happened and didn't wake up even after slamming the brakes on, and so we kept it to ourselves.
That's probably wise. And that wasn't considered derogatory in those days. I don't think the native populations even considered it derogatory.
Yeah.
I I don't know. Anyway,
Well, it was just I want to quote him
right?
because
No,
just the way he said
absolutely.
it, the
I
way he said it
absolutely.
was, you know, um, he had a look in his eye like he was a little freaked out.
Yeah. Well, and shoot, if nothing else, they didn't have anti-skid brakes in those days, and anti-lock brakes.
Well, I'm not that old, but
I am.
I don't think there were anti-lock brakes on it though.
Yeah. Hmm.
It was a truck. Yeah, so that was the first time that something I could see happened,
Hmm.
that kind of left me wondering, well, where did that come from? What's going on? There's more. like the old Transformers song, more than meets the eye.
Right.
So that was the first one there. Hey, Katie. Yeah. And then basically through my teens and I think into my 20s, looking back I remember times like feeling emotions that I like, why am I having these emotions? I don't understand why I would have a reason to have these emotions, or things would just feel heavy. I'd feel heavy in my chest. And ever since I can remember, I could see people in my mind and like know their name, but I would always be like, well, I don't know who that person is. I've never seen them before. Never really understood all that until after meeting you, basically.
I'm such a bad influence.
And as our good friend Karen Fraser says, the universal 2x4 hit me in the head and said, I'm going to need to pay attention now and I need to take note. And that opened me up to a whole other world of possibilities. And,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Possibilities and learning about what I'm supposed to do.
Pete's one of the very few people I actually refer to people to as a medium. And
thanks.
For somebody who started out so recently really working with it like that, that's really says something, because most people it takes a long time before they're ready. Longer than they think. But
yeah,
he does a great job.
Thank you.
Well, I still think about, I was sitting in a bar in Portland, and you were texting me about the man that looked like, or was that the sea captain, or was that the man that looked like Teddy Roosevelt?
The sea captain. I think you were maybe doing a Shanghai tour or something.
Oh yeah, it was probably it. I think I was waiting for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember some people came into view for me.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the brothers of that, the guy that looked like Teddy Roosevelt, was a bar pilot off the Columbia.
Oh yeah.
Columbia. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, I'm very humbled.
But
very humbled.
Still,
you know,
it took me a year and a half before I finally saw a picture of the one that looked like Teddy Roosevelt, and you told me his name was William, and that's his name, and I never did find out exactly how he died. I asked, but the one remaining cousin didn't know.
Okay.
And but I mean, Pete had been doing this for 2-3 years, and he was picking up on people 200 miles away around me. So that says something.
Wish I knew how it all worked. Right?
Yeah. I wish they'd tell me the winning lottery numbers. But
well,
it doesn't work that way, folks. So don't even ask us.
Yes. Well, for me, it doesn't work. I tried once.
Yeah.
Just to see. I really tried. And when they drew the numbers, it was a Powerball drawing. I was one digit off on every number in sequence, including the Powerball. It was either one digit higher or one digit lower.
They had quite a sense of humor in telling you, it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, I learned my lesson.
Yep. Yeah, I've even asked my folks and my guides, and it's like, if you want me to stay here and do this work, I need some income. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got to keep it going.
Yeah. Well, now you've been involved with research teams for, what, about the last 15 years?
Since 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, 13 years. And you live in a town that's about as haunted as they come.
Very lucky, too, in Port Gamble, yes.
Yes. And for those that want to go visit, there are no demons. There are no devils. There is nothing dangerous as far as the those that no longer breathe up there. I think that's your
A long-term residence.
yeah. And so don't freak out and don't go around trying to clear places and making a mess of things and making the residents angry. The living ones and the non-breathing ones.
Right. And the living and non-living ones are all pretty nice here. So,
That's right.
yeah.
And you can experience the Fae if you pay attention. I teach about that. Um, all kinds of things. Anyway, I'm going to jump because that's the way my brain works. Um,
Well, I was going to say you should talk about your class you're going to be doing at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up. It's
yeah,
in
I was
about a
just going to
month,
get
guys.
introduced into the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. And I
Yeah.
can talk about that.
Well,
But I'll
yeah.
start. I am doing a class
Yeah, tell us about your class.
that will be working with contacting the Fae and also reading the history. Because one of the things that I get the most satisfaction and joy out of in life is going to very old historic places and watching and reading that which happened thousands of years ago. And I've stumbled into some past lives that way. In one case, almost literally stumbled. I came about 2 inches from breaking my neck.
Yikes.
Yeah. It was a late Neolithic burial kist that was mine. There were tons of them around the area, and that was the one that was mine. It would just hit both me and the friend I was with at the same time.
Wow.
And it was like one of those gobsmacks. But it's like, no wonder I feel so much at home in Dartmoor. But anyway, so that's a 2-hour class. It's always it sells out usually.
Yeah, you'll be teaching it in the Walker Ames house.
Yep, which is a fabulous location.
Mm-hmm.
And close to so many other things.
So what have you, I know you've had experiences and others as well, with other worldly, not human spirits here.
right.
What's some of the things you've seen? And I'm sorry that this is your show, but I'm asking you questions right now.
I love it. I think the first physical elemental that I saw was a dwarf-like creature. And when you're up, there's a building, it's a big yellow wooden frame building, and it has the ground floor has the post office.
Yeah, the
and,
theater building. Yep.
yeah, some offices and such, and then
Yeah.
the second floor is the theater, and a lot of the conference will be up there, won't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there is for people who are challenged mobility, there is a chairlift. They can get up the stairs on that. Right?
Yeah, it's great to have that.
Yeah, and there's a ramp on one end or one side of the building for wheelchairs or different things too. So, just an ADA announcement. It is friendly, even though it's an old building
Yeah.
for codes.
Yep.
But looking down, there was a big kind of a gravel area, and there is a kind of a tall stone down towards the end of that area. And I felt there was something there. And so I pulled out my camera. I have a very nice Canon DSLR. I don't remember which one that was. It could have been the 70D. It might have been a little earlier one. But it's the real thing. And through the lens, I saw a dwarf-type man who, there wasn't any color around, but he was dressed very colorfully. He was taller than that stone, because I could see a little of that behind him.
Okay.
And he wasn't shaped quite like the stone. And like I say, he had blues and reds and whites and all these incredible colors on him with his clothing. And I heard footsteps in the gravel behind me. I turned around and there was nothing there, but those footsteps were very clear and very
Wow.
clearly bipedal human.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned around and he was gone. And so this was something that, yes, he showed up through the camera lens, but he wasn't a picture. It wasn't something I'd snapped. It was something I saw through my own eye with the through the lens.
Through the lens. Wow.
I wasn't seeing electronics. I was seeing the actual
Right.
sight. And so that was the first one. And the then I don't know, a few months, a year later, I saw one starting to materialize between two trees in a rather unusual park in Oregon City in the middle of the afternoon. And he saw me and looked rather startled that I was there, and he dematerialized. It was kind of like watching somebody come through the transporter beam on Star Trek.
Okay.
But in that area too, we found a lot of the smaller people or beings. I hate to label them people because not all of them like that.
Yeah, I like beings.
Yeah. And for those out there who don't know me, I use the word entity a lot. Being, I don't like to label. I rarely use the word spirits because so many times, most of the time, they're not a full spirit. They're part of somebody, or they're connecting with the full spirit or something. So I just try to leave it. They can tell me whatever they want to be called.
Right.
But people in the class have had often a lot of success in identifying. Plus, then we also go into different realms where a lot of these beings live. Because from what I'm picking up in my research is they are interdimensional.
Right.
This is Bigfoot.
Right, and I think that's totally possible.
Yeah, and this is what they tell me. This is what I get. Can I prove any of this? Of course not. Do I expect people to believe me just because I say so? No.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll all get the answer someday.
Exactly. And it could be something totally different because our brains can't. It's not that we'd be afraid of the truth. It's just that our brains can't put it together.
Right. Can't comprehend it.
Yeah, and so we're given something that can give us the right feeling, but it's different than whatever reality is. So I'm open to that. I mean,
yeah, and your classes are always interesting. So I'm glad to have it at the conference this year. So yeah, it's our 15th annual Ghost Conference here in Port Gamble.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You're the longest run on the West Coast, aren't you?
I think so. That's what I've been told.
Longer than the Oregon Ghost Conference.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, excited that it's the 15th year. Last year we really utilized 2 venues to kind of add more stuff. We're doing that again this year. Mm-hmm. We have more vendors than we've ever had before coming, and there's a lot of great things you're going to want to check out in the vendors. Okay. And including a lot of the speakers will have tables too. Many of the speakers, like yourself, are authors. So if you're looking for literature on the paranormal, that's a great place to come check it out. It's coming up November 8th through 10th. And right here in Port Gamble. And if you go to portgamble.com and go to the events tab, you'll see Ghost Conference. We've got a great lineup of speakers, classes, a nice wide range of classes this year. Excited about the investigations coming up. Someone from the theater has built a replica Chevy Impala from the show Supernatural, and it's got show used props in it.
Wow.
And he's going to bring that out and have it set up, so I'm excited to see that.
Yes.
I've never really been huge into supernatural or anything, but it's pretty cool how he's done it, and excited to see him come display it. So that'll be there at the conference. And after party is TBD still, but people will be enjoying 3 new shops in Port Gamble. I'm really excited for everyone to check those out and all the other businesses. So we've got a new business called Dahlia Cove Studio. It's a candle bar and a tea room. So in the back half of the house, you can get high tea, rent a room there and have a party, that sort of thing. And you can also make your own candles. It's very well done. Excited about that business. There's a new retail art gallery as well.
Okay.
Would have really nice pieces in there, and it's affordable. It's really nice people. And then we've also got a new business for those who've been to the conference in the past. The Painted Lady retired and moved out earlier this year. And there's a new business in there called Pretty Stick. And they right now have like a 30-foot skeleton outside the house, a 20-foot skeleton. Really cool things cut out you can get your pictures taken with. But they have costumes, they sell natural beauty products, and they have a huge room that's floor to ceiling with Star Wars toys. So if any Star Wars fans out there, you can probably see the posters behind me.
Aha.
It's a great shop, but they're going to be opening for investigation, so people will still be able to investigate that location.
Okay.
But yeah, the shops are all doing great, and looking forward to the Ghost Conference crowd to come out. You can get all the tickets and everything on portgamble.com. So I think this year we're going to have another great year of lots of learning going on, lots of different points of view, and hopefully lots of people getting together, sharing their stories. We're going to do a segment where it's ghost stories by the audience. We did that a couple years ago. It's a lot of fun because people have some great ghost and paranormal stories, and so I'm excited to hear those. I think it's after that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's always a fun one. I'm still trying to get panelists together to announce who they are, but it's going to be awesome no matter what. We've got a women in the paranormal panel.
Oh, good.
And right, because there's so many great ladies in the paranormal that come to this conference, so it'll be cool to get their perspective on things. Right. We've got an authors panel, and we're going to have this, of course, the psychic Q&A panel. Okay. That's always the most popular one. One of the things that I'm really excited about is Saturday night of the conference at the Pavilion. The League of Extrasensory Gentlemen, or all that can make it, will be doing a sneak peek of their paranormal case study of the Walker Ames house. Kind of show what they've done so far. I'm super excited to hear the guys talk about it and for people to see what they're working on. I will say I've seen a little bit, and it looks awesome.
These guys are incredible human beings too. I mean,
yep.
I know them, and they're good friends and good people, and so.
Yeah, I'm really excited for people to get to see that. My family's walking in, so I'm going to say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for that, and also bittersweet, but every year Ankasha Menti's done a gallery reading. As far as Port Gamble's concerned, she's a really good friend that goes back a long ways, and
she's part of the backbone of the whole original concept, isn't she?
Exactly. Yes, you are correct. But sadly, she can't make it this year. So hopefully we'll see her next year. But what I guess the bittersweet part is you and I and Joanne Clarkson get to fill her big shoes and do a mediumship gallery reading during the conference this year. So I'm really excited for that. I've worked with you numerous times in gallery readings.
We're great partners at that. And I don't really know Joanne, but the little I've seen and have met her, she seems wonderful. So I think it'll be a great experience, and I think people will really enjoy it.
Yeah, my wife Molly and I become fast friends with Joanne and her husband Jim.
Okay.
I just know we're all three going to work really well together.
Yeah.
We all pick up different parts of things,
Mhm.
and so I'm just imagining it's going to be a really positive evening of insight and fun.
Yeah. And it's always, you know, it's always sad when Ankasha can't make it because she is
Yeah,
such a dear, wonderful person. But I it's also kind of a great honor that, you know, to be part of who she would allow to replace
yeah,
her.
exactly. That's why I'm a little nervous.
But look how well we did before when we did it. It
Yeah,
was just the two of us. So,
it's fun. And
yeah,
if you've never been to a gallery reading, I always find them really interesting. You never know what's going to come up. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like, something bad's going to come up, but you never know who's going to show up.
right,
Your mother-in-law that you thought hated you, she'll show up and have a message for you.
right.
Things like that. So it's it's an interesting setting. So if you've never been to one, this would be a fun one to go to with our three perspectives on things. That's a special ticketed event. That one's 35. It takes place on Saturday of the conference, November 9th. And it's going to be right preceding the sneak preview of the Paranormal Case Study documentary by the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen.
Okay.
So this will be an interesting evening. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun conference. I think we're so lucky to have the people in the paranormal field that are in the Pacific Northwest, and beyond too. So it's looking forward. We've got somebody coming from Southern California, Jackie Campbell, and
Okay.
I met her at the Orange County Paracon a couple of years ago. She's a really neat person, so I'm excited that she's coming up this year.
Great.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've been going. I haven't been all 15 years, but I've been there at least for the day on
Many of them.
many of these.
Yeah.
And I remember at the beginning, I would need to get back and do ghost tours at night. Um,
Yeah.
it could long days. I was younger then; I could handle it better. But the conference always blows me away in a very good way. People are there to learn and to meet people. Good job, Katie. Katie is a wonderful person that um, I don't get to see enough, except for,
Agreed.
yeah, seeing her occasionally up there. And but it's a much more. I mean, it's a fun conference, but it's not a circus concert conference with tons of other things going on. The destination is the conference itself,
Well, our
and
buildings are only so big, so it gets intimate.
yeah, but it's not like there's this whole other atmosphere going on around in the town and such that are pulling people all over and getting walk-ins for
Mm-hmm.
a little bit that are just kind of looking around.
Yeah.
Um, Partly your pricing structure helps with that, but also just the location. The town is beautiful and all that, but there's a chance to see that and fully participate. So you draw a crowd that is mostly pretty serious about the work, the paranormal, or interested in knowing more.
Yeah.
And that makes the conference really rewarding from the perspective as a teacher. I'm not speaking this year, but
Yeah.
teacher, speaker,
Well, and
anything like
I
that.
hope that people feel it's a safe space to tell their story too.
Yeah,
That's why I want to do the ghost stories by the audience, so
right,
people can have a chance to maybe tell a story that they haven't really told anybody for fear of being called crazy.
right.
Right? You know,
And
everybody who does this work understands that, and so I hope that that comes through and that people can. Everybody gets to share something with somebody else and have it received as what it is. You know.
right.
So, yeah, well, thanks for the kind words on that. I've been lucky to, when I started working for the town, and it still is a town event, to start help. I haven't been to all of them either myself.
Yeah,
I missed the first one, but it's certainly been a lot of fun, and I met people like you, lifelong friends,
yeah,
and heard a lot of great different ideas, and I think that's what it's kind of is about in town here, because it's historical here, much like Oregon City, which is older than Port Gamble, but it's very historical here. So there's a lot to learn just in general, not even
right.
with the paranormal side of things. And so I think that those two things kind of go hand in hand here. I just started my 14th season of Ghost Walk tours. And I still enjoy doing it.
Great.
After 14 years, 14 seasons, or I'm starting the 14th, I should say.
But you do such a really good job on those too.
They're fun. It's just fun. There's always new stories to talk about, things that
Right.
happen on the tours. I just had my first one last night, and
Okay.
as we were leaving the Walker Ames house, the last couple of us people walking out, two of the guys, one guy heard a shuffle in the dining room, and the other guy thought he heard a little girl say, "Hey there," or "Hello," something like that. And so they were kind of like, "What?" And I said, "Well, that's something that's happened. I don't know how many times I've turned a recorder off, or I'm leaving the house, and as I'm leaving, you hear somebody say, 'Hello.'"
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, it's always
Dang
after
it.
you turn off the equipment.
Yes. So yeah, that happened last night. So it's great to be kicking off another tour season here, and I do them every Friday and Saturday this month, and including Halloween, because October's the only month that paranormal entities come out, or at least that's what the mainstream thinks.
Yeah, and Halloween's the highlight of it all.
Yeah, no, they come out year round, folks.
Yep. And believe it or not, they even come out in the daylight.
Oh yeah, that does happen.
I had somebody that wanted or asked me to go with him on an investigation because his team was too afraid to. And I said, okay. He said, great, we'll get there about 11 at night and stay until 3 in the morning. And I said, and I don't, when I was 20 years younger or 30 years younger, staying up all night sounded fine, but at a dance club maybe. Um, you know, um, but I said, when is the activity? And he said 3 to 6 in the afternoon. And I said, well, why don't we go from 3 to 6 in the afternoon then?
Right?
And he hadn't thought of that.
That's
It
I
never
think
did work out, which was really great. I didn't work very hard at it.
I think a
Um,
lot of stuff probably gets missed just from that simple thing of time of usual or typical occurrence.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be at nighttime, but the reason to investigate at nighttime, if there's no specific times you should be looking at things, is just because of there's less outside noise pollution, light pollution, things like that. Um,
yeah,
you know,
there can be. But you also then wind up with headlights showing differently than you would during the day, different
yeah,
sources. Sound seems to travel better, um,
right.
especially like where you are. You
Yeah,
probably
we're
get more
surrounded by
noise going
water.
across the bay.
Oh yeah, it's crazy when dogs. When I've been out here at night, you'll hear dogs barking. It sounds like it's 100 feet away, but really it's like a mile away across the
Yeah.
water. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And so those are all things investigators need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
There are always people at this conference that show or work with people or teach people about that. You have a lot of people
Yes.
running investigations that actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, and we're lucky that there's a lot of teams in the Pacific Northwest that are very pragmatic and very respectful,
Hmm.
and that's who you want to investigate. And as a medium, it's like it's cool if you can. This sounds bad, but be a tool in a sense, in a team's tool belt, you
Right.
know, to expand or maybe take the investigation in a different way. But yeah, there's lots of great investigators up here, and I feel so fortunate that I joke around on my tour that I'm a believer in the paranormal, but I
Right.
learned about investigation from some of the best skeptics. And
Right.
so you can be a total believer in it, but remain skeptical, doing research,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, well, I am. And
And I don't know if it's more of a skepticism of reported activity, but it's a skepticism of people.
right.
Um,
I believe.
Michael White, our friend Michael White, says he likes to observe the investigators on an investigation, and I think that's almost more interesting than what you're investigating.
Well, yeah, it can be.
Hmm.
And it's oh, what was I going to say? But oh, I lost it. But one of the things I like as a medium is we can add a piece. w- The instrument's going off, but all that says is there's an anomaly that's setting off the instrument.
Hmm.
Doesn't tell you what it is, doesn't tell you anything else. We can come in and put in some perspective on who it is
Yeah.
or what's causing or what's going on. And then sometimes have enough historical background with what we pick up
Hmm.
that it's possible to verify it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's great when you can add something to an investigation and then it bears out in historical research,
Right.
or genealogy of the location, when you can bear something out and get the name of something or, what happened there, but have it historically validated. I think that's um, helps build any case really easily.
Yeah. Well, and I'm one of these people. I believe in what I believe in because I've had firsthand experiences physically, not just as a
Hmm.
medium or psychic.
Hmm.
Um, I've had physical vision or sight with Bigfoot. I've had several physical encounters with the Fae, different kinds. And um, the ghosts, I saw my first one when I was about 8.
Yeah.
Um, Mine was a little boy, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and so he wasn't very traumatizing or scary.
Yeah.
Um, I thought he was another kid that we could play with,
Right. Yeah.
So that helps. It's not the big bad wolf type of
Yeah.
experience.
Well, it's
But
interesting that you say about the more of a physical type of experience, not just from how you receive messages as a medium, but something in the environment. And so I tried something last night on my ghost walk. So I make people raise their hands. I explain, like being an open skeptic. That's kind of how I started in all of it. How
uh-huh.
many people feel that they're there, right? Raise your hand. And then I tried something last night where I said, um, raise your hand if you're a believer in the paranormal. Like you've had something happen that you can't explain, or you have a ghost story. You know what I mean? Raise
Right.
your hand if you're um, a, a believer. And everyone, raised their hand. And then I said, how many people have had a personal experience? Nothing changed. everyone kept their hand up. And I said to everybody else, that's what it takes to become a believer, is you have to have that personal experience, right? You can be skeptical and have personal experiences and remain skeptical. Totally. But I
Yeah.
tried that last night just to see what would happen, and everybody who had raised their hands as a believer kept it raised as somebody who's had a personal experience.
Fantastic. That's a good experiment.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Um, I do like that. It's so hard to judge. I mean, it's so easy to turn something into what we want it to be otherwise.
That's
And
human.
yes, it is. And I
Yes.
wanted Bigfoot to exist ever since I first heard about Sasquatch and Bigfoot in outdoor school in fifth grade or sixth grade. Um, okay, Richard, sorry about that. I don't know. Does anybody else have problem hearing me?
I know this guy. It's operator error because I can hear you just fine. Go
Oh, yeah,
Hawks.
that's true. It is Richard, isn't it? He's going to kill us. Um, Richard's a good friend of ours, and um, so
Should have worn my
um,
Seahawks hat. Darn it.
yeah. Um, but anyway,
So you were talking about you wanted to believe in,
yeah.
Bigfoot for so
But
long.
I had to see it, and I think he let me see him, so that I would know then that the communications I've been having with them are probably accurate.
What was it like when, when you had visual contact? Like, what did you feel? What did you think?
Well, by the time I was with a group of people out, kind of, well, for me, in the middle of nowhere, as close to that as I care to get. Um, we were camping, but we could drive into town for a hot breakfast if we wanted
Yeah,
to.
nice. I like that kind of
Um,
camping.
yeah. Um, and we'd had experience with Faye, with a lot of fairy lights in the dark with no outside light sources. These were, you know, it's like the dust particles in the headlight beam on a
Yep.
dusty road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there wasn't any source to light up the particles. They were self-illuminating. There was
Mm-hmm.
enough ambient light from the stars and such to see. We didn't
Yeah.
have to use flashlights, and we were on a gravel Forest Service road, so the tree canopy above us and off to the side
Mm-hmm.
in the clearing and such was gone. So, we had that, and I saw him walking. As we walked down the road, I saw what looked like somebody outrageously tall walking behind a thin line of trees
Mm-hmm.
at the edge of basically a gravel quarry. And but there was a little breeze. The trees were moving one way. He seemed to be going the other, but I couldn't say for sure it wasn't movement of trees. Coming back, there wasn't any wind. He was walking in front of the trees, and the trees weren't moving. And
Okay.
it was very clear. And I just
Mm-hmm.
stood there, and I was at the back of the line. You know me, I get lost in whoever and whatever I'm seeing and
Do we
talking
need to put
to.
a bell on you, William?
Well, it's that or a fishing line you can reel in sometimes. Um, and I just stood there watching him, full on, just
Mm-hmm.
for probably less than a minute, but probably a good 30 seconds or more, long enough to make sure. And I hope, anyway, that I just had a thank you in my head, and then went up and talked to the rest of the group after we got to our campsite again.
Yeah.
Um, and I really feel it was him letting me know, yeah, okay, now you know we are real. Don't tell anybody where we are. And that was part of the deal. We can't tell anybody.
Right, right.
Because
So
one
that
of the
we're.
messages, oh, go
Oh
ahead.
no, you go ahead.
One of the messages that was really clear is no good follows man. And they didn't want physical proof. That's why we don't find physical
Yeah.
proof. We find a few interesting, sort of very hard for me to read footprints and a
Mm-hmm.
few,
Hair and stuff like that.
although that's never traced to anything and it's very rare. Um, so nothing of real evidence, but they
Mm-hmm.
know if they're proven to be real, they'll start winding up in zoos and on trophy walls and that kind of stuff, and it's not what they want. So
Yeah,
um,
it's
they
sad
don't.
because we could probably learn from them.
Yes, I think we can. Um, there, there's a story that Teddy Roosevelt, who never met anything he didn't want to shoot, um, including a
Right.
lot of people, um, but uh, was actually hunting for him in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and when he saw one he couldn't shoot. He said it was too human.
Wow.
And I've heard this from a few people who I trust who have sworn that this is, one of his quotes you can look up in a diary or something. I haven't done that research,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm thinking it's probably 85% chance that it's accurate. Um,
Nice.
it fits his profile. Um,
Well, I thought it was interesting when you started to talk about the story. You talked about seeing lights.
uh huh.
The like lights in a headlight, or dust particles, that sort of thing. Because that's a pretty common thing that people have reported before. Having a visual experience with a Bigfoot, right? I mean, I feel like I've heard that a ton where people
You
see
may have.
lights.
I haven't heard that necessarily, but I haven't heard that many real physical stories.
Yeah, I think
So,
the more and more people there are, the more and more people are going out in the woods and the environment,
mhm.
the more chances we have to have people have experiences and talk about them. And it just feels like it. I don't know. Someone will probably correct me, but probably over like the last 10 years, it seems like there's a lot more sightings. And a lot of them are reported of seeing strange lights that shouldn't
Okay.
be there, and then having an experience
I've heard the
that's.
strange lights associated with UFOs and the Bigfoot, and I have
Or
heard
is
that
it the
people.
mix of both?
It
You
could
see
be,
that a lot, right?
yeah. And I'm always skeptical about what people are calling a UFO. I mean, none of these people reporting these things are astronomers or
Right.
pilots or aeronautical engineers, and they're mostly talking about something that's up at the satellite level or further
Mm-hmm.
and making a judgment on that. And I'm not saying they're wrong,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that they're not exactly the expert that I
Mm-hmm.
would take their word for it without collaboration.
Right.
I think they believe it. I'm not saying they're lying, but I'm
Yeah.
not saying that their interpretation of what they're seeing is correct. Now, there are times when it is. When you
Right.
have one fly around going into three and you've got 20,000 people watching it, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
different story.
I
But
think of the Phoenix lights when you say that.
exactly. And in Turkey, there was something not that long ago, I think in Izmir.
Mm-hmm.
I think my friends saw it. I need to double check with them, but I think they actually saw it. I know he told me about it.
Hmm.
Um, and I've seen a UFO, but it wasn't, it was big and round and lots of layers of multicolored lights flashing, and it went down
Sounds like
to
a
my.
It sounds like a disco ball.
No,
Is that
they
what
were
you saw,
multi.
William?
Well, it was out in the. My parents had river property just for recreation, swimming hole and stuff. And a
That's
friend of
cool.
mine and I would go out there in high school. So we were too young to go to the pubs, and we didn't do drugs.
Okay, just making sure because it sounded like a
No, that's a
disco
good
ball at
question.
first.
10 years later, that would have been a really good question.
Yeah, right.
Um, but we were out. It was a great place to go at midnight and talk, you know,
Yeah,
and high school kids needing to get out of the house, and
sure.
no place to really go and stay out of trouble other than
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But it was huge, and I watched it go down a hill or behind a hill near us. It was
Mm,
close enough. I thought, oh, I know this area well enough. I can go find it.
yeah.
And then by the time we got back into my car, I thought, oh, we might find it. We didn't go looking. We went home.
Who may not want to find it?
We went the other direction, back to where we were living.
Oh, wow.
Eh, yeah, and but that was pretty clear. It wasn't a Goodyear blimp. Um,
Yeah,
for one thing, it was a really rural area. There was no reason for a blimp to be there, but it was also round, not cigar shaped.
yeah.
The first one I thought I saw at Niagara Falls did turn out to be the Goodyear blimp. When it turned a corner, all the colored lights started spelling things,
Oh,
and I was
jeez.
so disappointed.
You were hoping, were you getting your camera ready?
Yeah, I think I was 15 or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that's funny.
yeah, so, but there's a difference with something like that. That's why I bring that up. Is
Yeah,
okay, that's pretty clear that
yeah,
that is something more than just a pinprick of light. And I'm not trying to belittle anybody. It's just
sure.
I've got a solid background in research and facts. That's my degrees demanded it. My interests, the way if my math skills were better, and my memory, I very well likely could have been an astrophysicist because it really fascinates me. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I was just thinking, how fun is it, you know, if you sit back and think, when you're talking about paranormal, let's say in the spirit ghost sense, talk about cryptids, talk about extraterrestrials, UFOs, UAPs, whatever the title needs to be.
uh
It's also fascinating because we all still just don't know,
right,
right?
yeah,
We still just don't know. Will we ever know answers to things? I think that's what's really fascinating about the term paranormal is it doesn't just mean ghosts.
no,
We've got Jim Clarkson coming back again this year to the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and he's going to be talking about extraterrestrials, and he's got 40 years of research into this thing. But it's also fascinating because it's things that are just out of our grasp.
right,
Ghosts, Bigfoot, name any other cryptid, Loch Ness Monster, and then UFOs,
yeah,
extraterrestrials, aliens, Roswell. It's all just at a touch, and it's so human. It's such a human thing that makes fascinating, and I think is I find it interesting and cool that so many more people are open to the possibilities of extraterrestrials, the possibilities of cryptids, the possibilities of ghosts being real, and all right, and that so much more. There's just a shift overall in the Earth's vibe. There's a shift, with human minds going on, and so it's kind of cool. And as we kind of went through some different subjects, I was like, it's just so fascinating because it's just out of reach,
right.
but we keep reaching, right?
That's right.
That's what we do. We keep reaching, and that's just a cool thought
Well,
when you're looking at it as a whole, the paranormal as a whole. It's
yes.
interesting.
Well, and look how far we've reached with our exploration as humans into space. No, we didn't need alien technology to do it. Um, you want to get somebody with a history degree riled up, tell them that the only way the pyramids could have been built is if the aliens helped or did it. Um, and usually told by people who had never been to Egypt, you know.
Right.
Um, but do we know if they're extraterrestrial or interdimensional?
That's another thought too. Hmm.
Because there's more and more as things like quantum mechanics and string theory become more into people's awareness, even though
Yeah.
most don't understand it fully. I don't. Um, in fact, I'd say maybe on a good day I got 1%.
Yeah.
Really, but um, we're learning there's so much out there that we didn't know existed before. We're finding animals that were supposed to be extinct, or they're new that people hadn't seen before, um, under the
Yeah.
ocean, or even in remote areas of the jungles where
Yeah.
locals
Look,
might have known about them, but nobody else did. But we're invading that territory, so we're having these
more and
experiences.
more artifacts are being surfaced,
Yeah,
in different areas, and yeah.
and they fixed Voyager. I mean, this rocket or this survey that was sent up in what 75,
Hmm.
um, and wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to have died decades ago. Is still out there going strong. The
Yeah.
Mars rovers that we first sent that were supposed to last 3 months if we were really lucky,
Yeah.
they were exploring and broadcasting for years
Yeah.
until a major sandstorm just made the never did get the solar panels cleaned off again. So,
Oh, I thought the
um,
Martians snuck in the middle of the night and sabotaged them.
well, if I was a Martian doing that, I'd make faces in the cameras or something instead. I'd set up an alternative reality for people having
Oh
to look at.
gosh, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
it is interesting, and it kind of puts things in one of those perspectives, like where how small do you feel? When you think of Voyager 2, you know,
right.
billions of miles away.
And they did it with computers that
Yeah,
had less ability than our cell phones.
way less ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's
those
pretty.
computers filled huge buildings. I
It's
saw
pretty
them.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but where does where does this exploration go in researching what's here? Like,
Right.
let's say for ghosts,
Hmm.
will there ever someday be a meter that says there's a ghost standing in front of you? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or something that can, takes thermal imaging and full spectrum and puts the data together, and you can see truly what you can't see.
Right. And no, it's not something that's been manipulated because so many different pieces of equipment, even if it wasn't intentional, how much of it is being manipulated by the presets that are put in or the dictionaries that are put in or just the way the radio waves work and which voices come through loudest.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's why it's good to try and research the equipment you want to use
yes.
and talk to somebody who you trust, that's
Who
a
knows
tech
something?
person, maybe who works in the field of technology. And
Right.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's part of the education that needs to keep happening for people in general and not just in paranormal, but all over. I think we've come, from my experience watching people, reading the news, reading, um, a bunch of different sources and such, it seems like people are much more, as a whole, more reactive and taking the first extravagant, blood curdling headline and
Right.
assuming from that instead of doing the research in general. And there's so much garbage out there 24/7. And I think the critical thinking skills of being able to go through this have been lessened. I was talking,
I could see that. Yeah.
yeah, I was in a museum yesterday. We were doing a big fundraiser, and they had an old-fashioned looking phone, but it was a new phone. It had the push buttons instead of the dial,
Uh huh.
and but the type you lift up and talk to.
Yeah.
And they'd have fourth graders in that had no concept. They couldn't figure out how you would use that phone. They couldn't figure out how to dial out,
Yeah.
and that they couldn't figure it out is what scared me the most.
That after a bit of time, if they however much time they gave them, that they couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
Just, I mean, because we've got phones on our buttons, even if they're virtual buttons or, touch buttons, we have
They're
numbers
still
and stuff
buttons.
to dial on our cell phones.
Yeah.
Um, they really would freak out when they saw the phone we used on my great aunt and uncle's farm. That was the old crank style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
We have one of those in our museum here in Port Gamble.
yeah, you do. Well, this was in the little town of Grays River. That was the phone exchange, and that's what pretty much everybody had.
Yeah.
And you knew how many people were listening on the party line by how soft the ring was and how soft the voice was, and you knew who was getting the call by how many rings.
Yeah.
And my great aunt was the biggest one to complain about all the eavesdroppers, and she was the first one on that phone when somebody else was giving a call.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah. Hmm.
Usually how it works.
Yeah. I have a lot of great memories there. That was all gone before I was old enough to do any work, but I was old enough to run around and explore on my own and watch kittens
Yeah.
being born and sit on mom's lap and drive the tractor and, ride the hay wagon, but
Yep.
not have to lift bales.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Fall into the manure spreader full of stinging nettles and
Yuck.
little details like that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I talked about digression. Although that was in Washington. Um, what else have you got? Okay, the after party's TBA.
Hmm.
Is it? What about? I was going to ask about restaurants in town now because I know there have been changes.
So we've got all the same ones. We've been anxiously awaiting for a new one called Whiskey and Waffles, but we don't think he's going to be able to open until after the first of the year.
Okay.
Was hoping he was going to be open sooner, but we're really excited about that place. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, full bar hours, and everything
Oh, cool.
for this little town. So hoping that he was going to be able to be open by the conference, but he's had to push out for understandable reasons and stuff. So we're anxiously awaiting that one, but we're also going to have some on-site food. We've got Uncle Sassy's Pizza coming back.
They were pretty good if I remember right.
Yep. Yeah, good pizza. So they're going to be there. And a couple years ago, we had a place called Arkansas that did El Salvadoran food.
Oh,
And I think they're coming back. I
okay.
don't know if they've confirmed yet, but I think we were going to be able to get them. And so we'll have a couple food vendors as well.
Okay.
The theater is opening up their concession little booth. You can get drinks, different kinds of drinks. So they're going to have that open in the theater as long as the building's open. So
Oh,
it'll be
great.
easy to get refreshments. There's coffee across the street. There's coffee at the coffee stand.
Hmm.
Coffee at Butcher and Baker. So there's lots of options there. But the
Right.
tea room serves food
Okay.
with their tea service. So
Mm.
if people are wanting to make some extra special time for that, they can call and reserve or go online. So that's Dahlia Cove Studios, the business. So diacovestudio.com. And then House 11 Tap Room, they've got some sandwiches and great smaller eats and charcuterie boards, things like that, so you can eat there. And then, of course, the cafe at the general store and Butcher and Baker will be rocking and rolling.
Great. And for people, a lot of those places, aren't geared up for a large crowd all at once very often. So give yourself some time. If there are pre-order ways set up in advance.
Yeah, we'll have some options for some of the places, like a limited menu sort of thing, but can pre-order. Butcher and Baker has an app. You can order online. You can, pre-order your food, things like that.
And I've eaten at all these places, and they're all really good.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah. And with the food carts and the restaurants, you've actually got a variety of price points now, too. So that helps. And if I can get an English high tea, it's been a while since I've had one.
You'll have to check the place
English
out.
green tea.
I think they probably do that. I mean, it's very well set up in there.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
the
really
last
looking forward to
English
hearing
idea-
what everyone thinks about all the new shops.
Great. Yeah, the last English high tea I had was sitting in the patio of the hotel Agatha Christie used to stay in Egypt, on the bank of the Nile.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice, except it was 100 degrees in the shade.
Drinking tea. Yeah.
The
That's funny.
cucumber sandwiches dried out pretty fast, but it was still a great experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they do. Yeah, they do a lot of cool things in there. It's quite amazing. Yeah, but we're looking forward to having you and everybody up for a weekend of fun and learning, and hopefully some great personal experiences with people. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
You've got hotels set up.
Yep, there's the Fairfield in Paulsbo. They offer a discounted rate. The Paulsbo Inn also offers a discounted rate. And then we've got Paradise Heights, which is a new B&B, a bed and breakfast place. It's really cool. It's right across the Hood Canal Bridge from Port Gamble. So there's some lodging specials there. They're all on the website there.
Okay.
And tell you how to get a hold of them. So yeah, if you're looking to book a room, try one of those three places. There's the resort at Port Ludlow, which is actually the old sawmill site from the other mill town that Pope and Talbot owned here, Port Ludlow.
Okay.
That's a pretty good spot. They got a really nice restaurant in there called the Fireside. So yeah, just check out the website. The links for the lodging and stuff's on there.
I usually stay at the Paulsbo Inn. It's perfectly comfortable. The staff is nice, and
Yeah, a lot of people stay there.
I'm paying close to roughly half of what I paid in Seaside for the hotel.
Oh wow, yeah, they've always done a really nice deal for us.
And the B&B sounds like it might be a good. And now that's like a regular old B&B, not an Airbnb, right?
Correct.
So
You get breakfast.
And
it's
you
really
might
good
have
from what I
different
hear.
people. You get a room and a bathroom maybe, or a bathroom down the hall if it's not in your room, and there can be other people there that.
I haven't been there, but I know some people who've stayed there and they loved it.
Great.
So yeah, lots of options, and yeah, we're looking forward to having everybody. And I'm done one tour so far this month, and I'm tired already, but I'm ready for the other 20 or so I got to do.
I think it's great. Well, start training the girls. Lorraine's almost old enough to start memorizing the stories.
Oh, she can memorize it now. Yeah, we've talked about it.
Girls, you want some spending money? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. They've grown up so much. But what have I missed? What have we missed?
I don't know. We kind of went all over the place, which was fun.
Yeah. What about your band?
My band, Steady Rock Cosmonaut, is We're doing great. We got a show coming up November 15th at the Charleston Theater in Bremerton, and we're playing with the Weirdos and Name the Hurricanes, a couple rock bands we're playing with.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's at the Charleston Theater November 15th, and if people want to check out the band, they can go to steadyrockcosmonaut.com or just look us up on any major streaming service that you listen to music on. You'll find it. So,
yeah. I haven't. Well, no, I have. You played at one of the conferences a little bit.
that was a different group, but yeah.
That's right.
Hmm.
It was a different group. But yeah, you need to bring the band down here. I can't get up for your concert.
Do some shows in Portland or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
'cause, I've got a guest room. You're always welcome to. The ghosts in it are friendly. They might
Just like
shake your
here.
bed. Yeah, they might shake your bed or they might stand over it, but they're not going to hurt you.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Cool.
we're starting to play more shows, so yeah, excited about that one coming up. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun jamming out this summer and
Oh, good.
ready to keep going.
Excellent. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear it. Well, if we've got things pretty well covered, I could stay and talk to you forever, but I know you're a busy man.
I'm way too busy.
Yes, and I know you have a family that actually likes to see you occasionally.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I think
Yeah, they seem like pretty happy when Daddy's around. So
yeah,
yeah,
we all like each other.
yeah, it comes in so handy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been great to be on your show. Thanks for having me on and talk about the Ghost Conference and stuff. So we'll see you there. And anybody else who's interested in coming out, it's November 8th through 10th at portgamble.com. Just go to the events tab.
And I hit put portgamble.com in the
Yes, thank
notes.
you. I
You're
saw that.
welcome. And next time I'll have you on, we need to talk about things like some of the philosophy more behind the metaphysics and a few other things.
Sure.
To get to some other topics with you that I don't get to talk with enough people who know what they're talking about.
Well, I don't know that I know what I'm talking about, but it's all interesting conversation.
Exactly. Exactly. At
Yeah,
least
no,
understand
thanks.
that there's something going on. So,
Right. Right.
sorry, I'm not getting my words out very well tonight. So,
Well, that's
everybody
okay.
at home, thank you so much. Feel free to, I'll have the links up either later today or tomorrow, and feel free to share it far and wide. And we'll see you all in a couple weeks, I hope.
Yeah.
And some of you, I hope to see at the conference. Good
Me
night.
too.